So, good day, students. For our fourth quarter lesson about method, we will discuss today the name or the way on how you will name the chemical compounds and write their chemical formulas. Have you ever seen this medicine brand? Ayan. So that is Gaviscon, a substance that is drank by a person having a heartburn. So the components of this medicine or sodium arginate, sodium bicarbonate, calcium carbonate. Now the question here, how we will write the chemical formula or how this chemist write the chemical formula of this compound. Siyempre, medyo mahaba siya kung susulat. So we can write the chemical formula, for example, of this compound, sodium bicarbonate, as NaHCO3. Another one, this one, CO2. So what is this compound? So we are familiar with this compound as being the carbon dioxide. Now the question here, how does scientists or chemists know how to write or what is the meaning of such compound? So today, we will be discussing chemical compounds. So say chemical compounds, this is a substance that is made up of two or more different chemical elements combined in a fixed ratio. You see, there are numbers of elements combined to one another to form a compound. When the elements come together, they react with each other and form chemical bonds that are difficult to break. Now, we have different types of chemical compounds. So we have ionic and covalent. So when we say ionic, these are the compounds made up of charged particles called ions. It is usually formed when one metal element combined with non-metal elements. So if a combination of elements in a compound is my metal and my non-metal, that is ionic. While for covalent compounds, they are composed of atoms that share electrons to form molecular compounds. They are usually formed when non-metals react to each other. So if the combination of elements in a compound are both non-metals, they are covalent compounds. So to start, let's have first the ionic compound. So to name and write the chemical formula for ionic compounds, first you should be familiar with the elements that we have. So for you to easily understand the elements, you should have your periodic table of elements with you. So we all know that the locations of metal and non-metal and also metals are shown on the periodic table. And the groups of elements or yung ating mga columns, it corresponds the charges or the group number, also the group number of each element. So we have here the electron charges of elements. These charges are being used by elements, especially if you have ionic compounds. They are being used as they interact with each other in a compound. So for you to easily remember or memorize these charges, here are the charges of each element. So remember that they came in columns. So yung column 1 or yung group 1, which has the hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, and francium, they all have a positive 1 charge. While the group of beryllium or yung group 2, that starts with beryllium, they have positive 2. And the third or group 3 have positive 3. See group 4, having the carbon, silicon, germanium, and so on, they varies on the element that they are with. So it could be a positive 4 or negative 4. The group of nitrogen or nitrogen group have negative 3, oxygen group negative 2, and fluorine group have negative 1. Now the transition metals do not have a fixed charge. It is because they are an active elements. With the active elements, they are easily changed depending on what elements they are with. So, iba-iba siya. Depende kung ano yung kasama nilang element. So, remember those charges because they are on as we name and write the chemical formula of ionic compounds. Gagamitin siya. So, to start, we can have ionic compounds with non-transition metal and non-metal. So, when we say non-transition metal, these are the metals not included sa region ng mga transition metals. For example, the lithium, yung group ni lithium, group ni beryllium, boron, aluminum rather, and they are non-transition metals. Ibig sabihin, they are the metals na hindi kasama sa region ng transition metals. Having the scandium, titanium, vanadium, yan. Yung mga yan ay transition metal. So the rest na hindi kasama sa kanila are called non-transition metal. So to name this kind of ionic compounds, we can write the name of the non-transition metal plus the name of non-metal ending with IDE. Remember, pag compound, it always ends or it usually ends with IDE. Non-metal usually ends with IDE. So for example, we have aluminum and bromine combine to each other to form a ionic compound. So remember, the name of non-transition metal here is aluminum and the non-metal is bromine. So the non-metal daw should ends with IDE. So instead of writing it bromine, we can write or we can change the suffix or the last three letters into IDE. So we can call this compound as aluminum bromide. So to write the chemical formula for aluminum bromide, first, sabi ko nga kanina, remember the charges. So write the element symbol and the charges. So for aluminum, as you can see on our periodic table, aluminum in group 3 have positive 3 charge. While bromine in group of fluorine, they have negative 1 charge. So first, cross charges. So mean to say, cross mo yung charges ni aluminum and bromine. Wherein the charge of aluminum will be a subscript for bromine and yung charge ni bromine should be a subscript for aluminum. Remember that if we have one subscript or subscript 1, it's okay to not write the 1. Kasi yung symbol niya indicates na merong 1 atom of that element. So we can write the element or the chemical formula for aluminum bromide as AlBr3. Yung 3 ni bromine or ni bromide indicates that aluminum have positive 3 charge. So aluminum bromide has a chemical formula of AlBr3. Let's have another one. Magnesium and nitrogen. So si magnesium is the non-transition metal. Nitrogen is non-metal. So instead of nitrogen, writing it in nitrogen, change it into IDE, or it should ends with IDE. So we can write it as nitrite. So to write the chemical formula of magnesium nitrite, identify the charges. So we have magnesium as having positive 2, nitrogen as negative 3. Cross charges. We can write the chemical formula for magnesium nitrite as Mg3N2. The 3 subscript of magnesium indicates that nitrogen have 3 charge or negative 3 charge, and the subscript of nitrogen indicates that magnesium have positive 2 charge. So the chemical formula for magnesium nitrite is Mg3N2. Next one is naming the ionic compounds with transition metal. So here, you should write the name of the transition metal, and each charge, it should be written in Roman numeral, plus the name of non-metal ending in IDE. So let's say, for example, we have iron 3 oxygen or iron and oxygen combined to each other to form a compound. So instead of writing oxygen, it should ends with IDE, so it should be oxide. And then yung Roman numeral number 3 here indicates that the iron as a transition metal have a charge of 3. So, nandun sa pangalan niya yung charge niya. Sabi ko kanina, nagbabago-bago yung charges ng bawat transition metal. So, iron is one of the transition metals. So, nag-iiba-iba siya depende sa kung ano yung kasama niyang element. So, to write the chemical formula of iron 3 oxide, first, identify the charges. So, sa pangalan pa lang, the iron has positive 3 charge, positive kasi metal siya. And oxygen, as you can see on the chart, oxygen have negative 2 charge. So again, cross charges. We can write the chemical formula for iron 3 oxide as Fe2O3. Yung subscript ni Fe or ni iron indicates that oxygen have 2 or negative 2 charges. Yung subscript naman or yung numbers sa ilalim ni oxygen indicates that iron have positive 3 charge. So iron 3 oxide have a chemical formula of Fe2O3. Another example, cobalt 2 chlorine or cobalt and chlorine combine to each other to form a compound. So si chlorine as non-metal, which should ends with IDE. So instead of writing it chlorine, it should be chloride. So cobalt 2 chloride, identify the charges. So we have cobalt positive 2 and chlorine as negative 1. Cross charges. Ayan. So we can write the chemical formula for cobalt 2 chloride COCO2. Yung 2 ni chlorine or ni chloride indicates that cobalt have a charge of positive 2. Yung negative 1 ni chlorine ay hindi na isusulat. Reminder also, yung mga positive and negative hindi na isinusulat sa subscript. Only the number. Next one is writing the ionic compounds with non-transition metal and polyatomic ions. So when we say polyatomic ions, these are the ions having 2 or more elements, but they only have one charge. So for example, the ammonium, the carbonate, the nitrate. So you can see maraming element na nasa ions na to, but they have one charge lang. For example, the ammonium have a charge of 1. Si carbonate have negative 2 charge, pero si carbonate have elements carbon and oxygen. So, they act as, or they have one charge lang. So, to name this one, first identify the name of non-transitional metal plus the name of polyatomic atom. So, here we have calcium and phosphate. Calcium is the name of non-transition metal, and phosphate is the name of one polyatomic atoms. So, to write this one, identify the charges. So phosphate have negative 3 charge. So cross charges, we have this one. So we can write the chemical formula for calcium phosphate as C3PO42. Close, open close parentheses para i-separate yung polyatomic ions. Another one is this one, calcium bicarbonate. So calcium bicarbonate have a charge of negative 1. Cross charge, we can write Ca, open and close parentheses, HCO3, 2. Next one is naming ionic compounds with transition metals plus atomic ions, polyatomic ions. So, sige naman kanina, identify the name of transition metal plus the charge or its charge and Roman numeral plus the name of polyatomic atoms. For example, copper 2 nitrate. So, copper here, having the Roman numeral 2 have a positive 2 charge. Si nitrate naman have negative 1 charge. So cross charges, we can have the chemical formula for copper 2 nitrate as Cu, open close parentheses, NO3, 2. Yung 2 ni nitrate indicates that copper have positive 2 charge or 2 charge. Another example, iron 2 sulfate. And so here on the name, iron have positive 2 charge. Sulfate here have negative 2 charge. So cross charges, we can write the chemical formula for iron 2 sulfate FeSO4. So you can see na wala yung subscript because they have balanced subscript or balanced charges. It's okay to do not write the numbers. So dahil 2 si iron and 2 si sulfate, both are 2, they are balanced, hindi na ilalagay. Now, I have here an example of compounds. Let's name them. And so, KCO. So, K is the chemical symbol for, or element symbol for potassium. And Cl is the chemical symbol for chlorine. So, potassium is metal, or non-transition metal. And chlorine is a non-metal. So, this one is an example of letter A. Ionic compounds with non-transition metal plus non-metal. So, to name this one, write the name of the non-transition metal plus the name of non-metal that ends with IDE. So we have potassium chloride. Next one, we have lithium hypochlorite. So this one, lithium is a non-transition metal and hypochlorite is a polyatomic ions. So this one is an example of letter C, non-transition metal plus polyatomic elements. So we have LiClO. So the charge of lithium here is positive 1 and the charge of hypochlorite, as you can see on our chart, is negative 1. This one, negative 1. So they both have 1, so it's okay to do not write the chemical charges or the element charges. Next one, we have NiOH2. So Ni indicates nickel. So yung 2 ni hydroxide or ni OH indicates that nickel as transition metal have positive 2 charge. So this one is an example of letter D, transition metal plus polyatomic atoms. So hydroxide have a charge of negative 1. And next one is titanium 3 phosphide. So titanium is a transition metal having a charge of 3. And phosphide is non-metal. So this one is an example of letter B. Transition metal plus non-metal. Yan. So titanium has a charge of 3. Then phosphate or phosphorus have a negative 3 charge. So it's okay to do not write the charges. So TiP. Now, for covalent compounds, you do not need to identify the charges. Just write the prefixes before the name of the non-metal element. So we have prefix mono, 1, di, 2, tri, 3, tetra, 4, pent, 5, hex, 6, hep, 7, oct, 8, non, 9, and 10 deca. So mono sometimes are not used by elements because the name itself indicates that you have one element of on that compound. So sometimes hindi na siya ginagamit. But sometimes ginagamit. So pag sinabing mono, 1. And so let's have an example here. So to name the covalent compounds, all you need to do is to write the prefix and the name of non-metal or the first non-metal plus the prefix and name of non-metal that ends with IDE. For example, carbon and oxygen. And we have di as a prefix of the second metal element. So here we have carbon dioxide. So first write the chemical symbol. So we have C for carbon, O for oxygen. Now we have here di as a prefix of the second element, which is the oxide or oxygen that ends with IDE. So it indicates the prefix di means 2. So we have CO2 for the chemical formula of covalent compounds, carbon dioxide. Another one, nitrogen trichlorine or chloride that ends with IDE. So to write the chemical formula of nitrogen trichloride, write the element symbol. So N for nitrogen, Cl for chlorine. Now, we have tri here that indicates that chlorine we have 3 chlorines. So we have NCl3. Another one, dinitrogen tetra oxygen or oxide. It should end. So remember, the second element should end with IDE. So we have dinitrogen tetrahydroxide or tetraoxide. And so to write, we have N for nitrogen and O for oxygen. So here we have di, prefix di means 2 for nitrogen, and tetra means 4 for oxygen. So we can write the chemical formula for dinitrogen tetraoxide as N2O4. Another one, phosphorus pentachloride. Instead of writing chlorine, write chloride ends with IDE. So to write the chemical formula for phosphorus pentachloride, we have P for phosphorus and Cl for chlorine. So walang prefix si phosphorus means we have 1 phosphorus here. And pentachloride, penta means 5. So we have 5 chlorines. So we can write the chemical formula for phosphorus pentachloride as PCl5. So that is how we will name and write the chemical formula of each compound. So remember, we have 2 types of chemical compounds, the ionic and covalent. Elements that they are with.